Welcome to our presentation on the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource, how it has been used in East Ayrshire. My name is Catherine Roger and I am the manager of East Ayrshire Support Team East, the central support team for education within the authority. My co-presenter today is one of my principal teachers, Debbie Thomson. Today, Debbie and myself have a number of aims. First, provide an overview of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource, launched in January 2020. Explain the motivation for engaging with the resource in East Ayrshire from the perspective of my Central Support Team East, staff across the authority and the senior leadership team in education. We will then give an overview of the East Ayrshire experience with the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource, sharing some examples of where we have utilised the methodologies within it to help develop an inclusive practice within East Ayrshire. Next, we will share some of the impact of the resource on practice, learners, colleagues and families. And finally, we will share some reflection of where we are now and how we want our next steps to further utilise the resource to continue our journey to make East Ayrshire an inclusive practice authority.
The Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource is one of several free resources which was developed in response to the 2014 Education Scotland report, Making Sense: Education for Children and Young People with Dyslexia in Scotland. It was developed by Education Scotland alongside the Making Sense working group and stakeholders with the aim to support practitioners, schools and local authorities to, among other things, improve the quality of educational outcomes for learners with dyslexia through collaborative inquiry, effective self-evaluation, and measure the impact of this through evidence-based improvements, as well as support professional learning on inclusive practice and further develop the use of this to support all learners within the school community. As I touched upon, the resource was developed in response to the 2014 Making Sense report, which had 5 main recommendations. And while the resource was developed to support all 5, it had a particular focus on recommendation 4. Schools, local authorities and national partners should take action to improve the quality of educational outcomes for children and young people with dyslexia, and in particular 4.4, which stated that the Scottish Government should work with Dyslexia Scotland to consider national accreditation schemes for dyslexia-friendly schools and dyslexia-friendly authorities. The resource is made up of 4 main sections, with the first section setting the context of this being a professional learning resource and explaining how it evolved to become the resource that it is. It clarifies why, despite the Making Sense report highlighting the positive impact on school communities when they became dyslexia friendly, the working group chose not to develop a national model of DFS accreditation, but moved towards a resource that would support and improve inclusive practice. While we know that becoming a dyslexia-friendly school benefits not just dyslexic learners, but all learners, this approach has developed over the years from the various kite-marked accreditation schemes to a pedagogy that is inclusive and holistic, reflecting current research on effective positive learning for all children. Thus, through conversation and consultation events, it was agreed that this resource should have the focus of improving inclusive practice. That should be the main focus of it, rather than a development of an award for dyslexia-friendly schools, as the features of dyslexia-friendly schools should already be evident in all our schools and monitored through existing self-evaluation tools such as Higgies. So why keep a focus on dyslexia to develop inclusive practice? This has been one of the frequently asked questions throughout the Making Sense programme. Why dyslexia and not any other additional support needs? The broad range of characteristics experienced by dyslexic learners overlap with so many characteristics of other neurodevelopmental differences and additional support needs that dyslexia-friendly pedagogy and approaches are applicable and transferable in a way that makes them beneficial and supportive to a wide range of learners. The image you see on screen here, taken from this section of the resource, highlights the close correlation of key features of dyslexia-friendly schools with the key features of inclusive practice. The next section of the resource then takes each of these key features and digs a bit deeper as to why these are relevant and how you can realise them, before providing the reader with reflective questions to assess where they are in that process or on that journey. These questions are designed to support conversations focusing on improving and developing inclusive practice for all learners within the school community, while supporting us as practitioners and establishments to fulfil our statutory duties. The resource encourages us to engage with this self-evaluation tool with a focus on evidence and impact through the next section, which provides an overview of improvement methodologies that support how we measure the impact of the collaborative inquiry through evidence-based improvements. It provides examples of the different types of improvement methodologies summarised here, which can support the development of inclusive school communities achieving that vision of ensuring they're inclusive and that their practice is embedded in a sustainable way. East Ayrshire engagement with these different methodologies within the resource has had an aim to improve pedagogy and meeting additional support needs within our inclusive practice journey as a whole authority. The final section of the resource then provides us with tools to support the implementation of inclusive practice. Annex A, professional learning, sets the context, starting with highlighting how Scotland's inclusive education system and flexible curriculum framework highly values teacher professionalism. It goes on to signpost practitioners to the wealth of professional learning that is available to them, including websites that are current and regularly refreshed, namely the Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit, as well as Dyslexia Scotland's website and the recently launched Dyslexia Unwrapped, as well as free online modules, including the three progressive dyslexia modules, Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice, which can support GTCS professional standards, professional update and professional recognition. Annex B, learner participation resources, includes guidance and support materials to help us get learner voice at the heart of school self-evaluation and improvements. Annex C and D are examples of resources that you may find useful to support the implementation of this improvement methodology, and Annex E is a bank of reflective questions that you'll have seen throughout the resource collated together for ease of reference.
Motivation within East Ayrshire to utilise improvement methodologies within the resource have been high throughout our inclusive practice DFS accreditation journey, in terms of embracing change through collaborative reflection and action research, with the aim, when engaging with the improvement methodologies, being to improve our pedagogy to meet the spectrum of additional support needs. East was set up in its current form in 2010, and we have been on a continuous journey to improve practice in meeting needs in East Ayrshire, and research has been at the heart of our improvements from the onset. Indeed, as a new team in session 2011 and 12, we engaged in our first action research cycle, a problem-solving analysis approach alongside colleagues from psychological services, looking at the assessment of learners who may be dyslexic. This is the start of our journey from an expert model to an empowered model of assessment and intervention, to meet not only dyslexic learners' needs, but the spectrum of additional support needs. Around the same time, Neil Mackay and his work on dyslexia-friendly schools came into my central support teams and psychological services radar. This approach was seen as a way to scaffold practitioners to further enhance their assessment procedures and scaffold effective interventions using appropriate resources, as well as improving the skills and knowledge around dyslexia and DSN in our school communities. We developed East Ayrshire's Dyslexia-Friendly School Accreditation Pathway, incorporating the key areas of a dyslexia-friendly school. And we further enhanced our accreditation pathway by incorporating a section on assessment. At the time of the publication of the Making Sense Review in 2014, an opt-in dyslexia-friendly school accreditation pathway incorporating action research was firmly in place in East Ayrshire. Commitment from chalk-faced practitioners to engage in the research methodologies can be highlighted by the high level of engagement in our dyslexia-friendly school accreditation pathway year on year, as the schools progress from bronze to silver to gold awards, as well as their commitment to maintaining their gold award through the quality assurance visits that take place every 2 years. Authority commitment to our improvement agenda through action research has come from the senior leadership team in education. Our Inclusive Practice Dyslexia Friendly School Accreditation Award is included in our Authority Education Improvement Plan, with evidence of improvements reported in the Authority's Standards and Quality Report for Education. East also incorporates our improvement actions in our improvement plan and reports progress in our Standards and Quality Report, as do all schools engaging in our Inclusive Practice Dyslexia Friendly School Accreditation Award. Further commitment from the senior leadership team in education is their support of our yearly award ceremony in Dumfries House, where all schools receiving awards are invited and their improvement journeys through their different models of action research are shared and celebrated. East Ayrshire has been in a unique position throughout the development of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource. Prior to the formal launch of the resource, we have been in a position to see and engage in professional dialogue and reflection throughout its development. This has been through our involvement in national groups, namely the Making Sense Working Group and the Dyslexia Toolkit Working Group. We also shared and provided feedback on a draft of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource from our Gold School Dyslexia Champions during an engagement event with Fran Rinaldi from Education Scotland. We also utilised methodologies in the resource throughout our Inclusive Practice DFS Award journey and throughout the development of the resource itself to support improvements year on year in a number of areas, and these are our Inclusive Practice DFS Award pathway, CLPL opportunities, authority-wide pedagogy pertaining to additional support needs, collaborative working with other agencies, East interventions, and last but not least, individual class teacher pedagogy.
East Ayrshire has mirrored the shift nationally from dyslexia-friendly schools to inclusive practice within our Authority Award scheme to keep us up to date with current thinking. This has been through year-on-year collaborative action research involving East Management, our accreditation panel, our dyslexia champions in schools, and class teachers and senior leadership teams during our accreditation visits. This has resulted in improvements to East Ayrshire's inclusive practice support packs and accreditation packs, our day-to-day pedagogy within our schools, introduction of new interventions to meet need, participation of learners' voice, and an increased understanding of dyslexia and other additional support needs in our school communities. East has from the onset had a career-long professional learning calendar. Again, using collaborative action research year on year involving East staff that were leading CLPL sessions, feedback from our practitioners that were attending the sessions, our dyslexia champions, alongside professional dialogue with psychological services, so the Scottish Attainment Challenge team, and organisational development, we have evolved this. And we now have a larger CLPL calendar developed from that staff feedback, a more diverse calendar that spans across the spectrum of additional support needs, a reduction in CLPL duplication with other teams, and a shift from purely information sessions to teacher learning communities and professional learning communities delivered through either cookbook approaches where staff can dip in and out, or novel approaches where they can attend a series of sessions.
East has undertaken many research projects alongside colleagues which have brought about improvements to our ASN pedagogy across the authority, and these have been in many areas such as classroom assistant interventions in literacy and numeracy, jump into movement and East intervention for fine and gross motor skills, ICT interventions to meet needs, and East Ayrshire assessment in literacy, numeracy and health and wellbeing within our pupil assessment profile, our PAP, to name just a few. One such action research project saw East utilising improvement science, plan, do, study, act PDSA cycles alongside practitioners in Primary 1 to improve our existing ELAC processes, our early level literacy assessment tool processes. This is one of East Ayrshires tracking and assessment tools and is an effective transition tool from our early childhood centres into our primary establishments. However, professional dialogue with practitioners had fed back that they thought it wasn't wholly fit for purpose, particularly for those children whose motor skills or developmental skills were not age appropriate. Additionally, there was a very small number of children who were indeed secure at early level literacy, who were being incorrectly flagged up due to factors such as physical disabilities. Through PDSA cycles, we improved the sensitivity of our LAC processes to ensure relevant children were being identified and next steps agreed through a collaborative, cohesive approach to identify the children at risk of literacy difficulties, through the triangulation of data, giving due consideration to a range of information rather than looking at one piece of evidence to decide the next steps, with pupils, including those who were highly able, being identified more tenuously and with greater flexibility in relation to the pathways. Our improvement journey, utilising action research projects, has resulted in more collaboration with other agencies, such as our colleagues in NHS Ayrshire NAN. To ensure East Ayrshire learners were not being identified as having dyslexia, when in fact they had visual stress, we have used Model for Improvement research over a number of years in collaboration with VAROC staff. This is staff from the Vision and Reading Orthoptic Clinic in NHS Ayrshire NAN. And we have created and are using an evolving but effective pathway that has had a number of benefits. It has reduced the pressure on NHS Ayrshire NAN VAROC Clinic. They're no longer dealing with large numbers of inappropriate referrals from East Ayrshire. A reduction in time for learners to get access to the appropriate coloured overlay. Previously, it could take up to 2 months for this to happen, and the pathway has built capacity within East to screen for visual stress. Indeed, quality assurance by NHS staff of our pathway has shown that East Ayrshire is catching more children than other authorities who are referring to the VAROC clinic, with a 94% positive referral rate. The success of our collaborative research has prompted NHS Ayrshire NAN VAROC clinic to approach the other referring authorities and has asked them to adopt the East Ayrshire referral pathways. And East has agreed to support the implementation of this further improvement work moving forward.
As a central support team in education, we are constantly using research methodologies from the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice Professional Learning Resource to help address need and remove barriers for learners. As a team, we reached a place of intervention fatigue several years ago as we came across new initiative after new initiative that promised to answer all our prayers. So now we make sure that anything new that is being introduced has been well considered. Despite the initiative overload, there were still some core elements of practice that were deeply rooted, but we felt needed to evolve to align to what research was consistently telling us was best practice. We wanted to make a more pronounced shift from a traditional chalk and talk delivery to a framework that delivered results for children with delayed language development. WordAware and TalkBoost were gaining some national interest, and we invested in these with a small eye in investment. We didn't want to throw thousands of pounds on a resource thinking it would be a magic fix. East has then been on a journey using a PDSA approach to extract elements from different sources to create a unique pathway that fits with our situation. We've learned that this can't be done successfully with a working party beavering away and producing a fait accompli. It requires adjustments and fine-tuning before it can be scaled up and spread. Pre and post intervention data is used in triangulation with class teacher observations, learner and parent carer feedback, and this affirms the positive impact and gains made for identified learners. And we haven't yet finished on this particular road, but session 2021-22 should result in this particular approach being scaled up. Class teachers have been growing in confidence throughout our inclusive practice journey, using action research to improve pedagogy in many areas. As the central team leading, supporting and quality assuring the school's inclusive practice DFS award journeys, we see and hear about this through many routes, through professional dialogue at our Dyslexia Champion meetings, through accreditation visits, presentations from schools and sharing good practice events. One such piece of action research saw a class teacher in one school engage in PDSA cycles with her learners to establish what resources they felt they should have in their support boxes that would best meet their needs and how best to store and share these. Through various PDSA cycles, the teacher and her pupils eventually established the resources they wanted to support learning and teaching and the best way to store these through a learning wall. The success of this action research soon spread across the whole school, with all classes choosing their own resources and developing their own unique learning walls using further PDSAs. This was then shared with all our Dyslexia champions through an open night to view and discuss the learning walls and the resources that they contained. As an accreditation team, we then saw the spread of support boxes to learning walls, to resource corners and resource bookcases in different classes in many schools across our authority, following this class teacher's research with her one class.
East Ayrshire involvement in research methodologies in the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice professional learning resource has had a positive impact and increased participation by all stakeholder groups, as well as a positive impact in pedagogy, as more and more establishments engage in the East Ayrshire Inclusive Practice DFS award journey. Throughout the development of the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice professional learning resource, engagement in small-scale research projects has resulted in improvements in pedagogy and systems, not only coming from my central support team East, but from chalk-faced staff across the authority. All schools in East Ayrshire have classroom assistants that we refer to as CAs to help support the spectrum of additional support needs. Through collaborative action research using various PDSA cycles involving CAs, we have seen improvements that have increased our CAs' knowledge, skills and confidence to be effective in supporting the spectrum of additional support needs. There has been an increase in CLPL opportunities through various routes, with the development of an East Ayrshire CA training matrix developed in collaboration with the CAs themselves, other agencies and obviously East. The introduction of classroom assistant coaches to provide modelling and coaching through various PDSA cycles directly to classroom assistants in schools has also had very positive results. An example of this is our guided reading intervention delivered by an East classroom assistant coach to classroom assistants. It's a very common sight in our schools to see classroom assistants supporting reading groups, and they're often allocated the learners who are struggling the most. Yet historically, CAs have not been given the tools, the knowledge or the skills to help these learners progress. The guided reading intervention developed and delivered by East CA coaches has had a very large success on many levels. First, the peer approach facilitates relationships which are based on trust and mutual respect. The CA coaches are also highly skilled at progressing at a pace that is comfortable for the CA that they're supporting. Light bulb moments where CAs learn a new rule or a strategy are frequent. And at the end of each modelling and coaching session, there is a relaxed debrief where aspects of the session are discussed. And again, it's very common for CAs to share with the CA coaches how they're transferring the knowledge and skills that they're learning to other groups that they're supporting. The numerous CAs who have accessed the modelling and coaching sessions have, without exception, found these to be positive. And the ripple effect is observable, where other CAs in the schools are taking an interest and they too are requesting input through the modelling and coaching sessions. The commitment and investment from East Ayrshire to our CAs has paid dividends in so many levels, and most importantly is leading to improved outcomes for some of our most vulnerable children.
As part of our authority journey to embed inclusive practice, we get the pleasure of visiting schools across the authority on a regular basis to see how they are implementing improvements through various improvement methodologies at a school level, and the highlight is always meeting the learners. Seeing how empowered they become through this process with their voice firmly at the centre of schools' tests of change is an absolute joy and a testament to the success of inclusive practice reflection. Whether this be through learners' involvement in the development of support boxes and learning walls, where they've approached parent councils to support the resourcing of these, or the development of pupil pledges like you see here that support the school's vision to reach for the stars and give everyone the opportunity to achieve, or their involvement in the development of the excellent lesson, where staff are striving to ensure all parts of their lessons are sculpted to meet the needs of their students and hold their views at the centre of that vision in their reflective practice. Family engagement, participation and confidence to support learning has been a core aspect of East Ayrshires inclusive practice journey. PDSAs have been utilised and resulted in improvements in a number of areas, such as increased information sharing through blogs, school websites and newsletters with a focus on additional support needs, increased parental voice within East Ayrshire's assessment process for additional support needs, and parental involvement to improve learning environments, for example, helping out making the school library dyslexia friendly and more accessible for our learners. One school undertook a PDSA to make their dyslexia information session more interactive instead of that traditional chalk and talk information session that they'd ran for parents in previous years. The team brought all the resources from the support boxes in the classrooms and set up computers displaying Clicker, My Study Bar, Scottish Voice, CogMed, etc. This allowed the parents to interact with the resources and discuss these with the learners and with the staff. Feedback, as you can see from the slide, was extremely positive from the perspective of the parents' understanding of dyslexia and literacy difficulties resources to support learning and confidence to help support their children. One parent thought they may be dyslexic themselves following on from the engagement session and was returning to their college to request an assessment for themselves. Year on year, engagement in various action research projects within East Ayrshire during our Inclusive Practice DFS award journey has seen an increase in knowledge of dyslexia and the spectrum of additional support needs. Empowerment to lead and engage in research projects can be seen at all levels, from our central team to senior leadership teams in schools to class teachers and classroom assistants in our classrooms. Confidence sharing improvements with colleagues across education groups and across the authority has also grown. As a team leading our inclusive practice journey, seeing and hearing about class teachers and classroom assistant coaches leading action research has definitely increased year on year. As a central support team, East is often asked to find potential solutions to challenges with a high success rate, I may add. One such occasion was when we were approached to work in collaboration with speech and language therapist colleagues to see if an internal package of support could be created for an East Ayrshire child who was being considered for an out-with placement at an external provision. Following initial training, an East teacher worked in partnership with speech and language therapists to create and deliver a bespoke package of support, preventing this child from needing to access his educational placement away from his local community. As this was such a novel and innovative concept, a PDSA approach was utilised and small tests of change took place right across the session. The East teacher was able to exercise real empowerment using a range of supports, including access to training, shadowing, time for professional dialogue, and freedom to learn and adapt the programme. Indeed, it was a great success, and the child continued to thrive in a mainstream establishment alongside peers from their own community. And using the PDSA framework enabled the programme to be scaled up, resulting in more of our children and young people having their needs met locally. During a PRD meeting with a particular teacher, she spoke enthusiastically about how much she'd not only enjoyed this, but how empowered it had made her feel.
The Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice professional learning resource is a resource that will continue to be utilised to support both my central support team East and our school communities as we move forward within our inclusive practice journey. Next step for East is to completely update the East Ayrshire's Inclusive Practice Dyslexia Friendly School Awards Support Pack and Accreditation Pack to completely align these with the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice professional learning resource. They are currently a hybrid model due to the pandemic and the unusual pressures on our school communities as a result of this. We will also continue to roll out an Inclusive Practice DFS award to our East Ayrshire Early Childhood Centres, our ECCs. And this has come about because of requests from early years practitioners. With the emergence of the campus model in East Ayrshire, we are currently looking at the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice professional learning resource to undertake further research with our largest campus.